Okay, I have my phone balanced on my plant, so that's why there's like leaves. And this one's breaking off, you can see, but we're still holding on. Um, so, I'm Kennedy, and my presentation is on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and I am looking at the slides as I'm doing it, but I think I'll find a way to put them in. We'll see. Okay, so starting off with the director, it is directed by Milos Forman. I think that's how you say the name. And he was from Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia. That's how I wrote it in my notes. And I crossed it out each time, so I thought I would include it. So, he was born there. His parents were actually taken away by the Nazis during World War II, which I thought was interesting. He ended up going to Prague Film School, and there's a little picture of him. He's quite the dashing old man, I guess. Back home, he made 3 films, one called Black Peter, one called Loves of a Blonde, and one called The Fireman's Ball. And then when he came to America, he made a film called Taking Off. And then, of course, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So, the writers of the film. Ken Kesey, he was actually the writer of the book, which is what the movie was inspired by. He was quite the interesting man. You can see by these pictures that he lived a very colorful life. He had like this bus that it was like this fun land sort of thing. I just thought I'd include it because he's the writer of the book. Alright, so then the other writer, there's 2 writers of the film, like screenplay writers. Lawrence Hauben was one of the writers, and he won the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay, which is really cool. I couldn't find a whole lot of information about him other than he was an actor as well as a screenplay writer, and IMDb said he was a Pisces. So it's Pisces season right now, so happy birthday, Lawrence Hauben, if you're still here with us. I'm not sure. But, so that was him. And now we're going to talk about Bo Goldman, and he was like a king at this time. There was a quote that I read online, and like they called him a screenwriter. One of the most honored screenplay writers in like film history. So he also won the Writers Guild Award, which is a super huge honor, as well as, of course, the Best Adapted Screenplay along with Lawrence Hauben. So now we're going to move on to the cast. This movie was really interesting. Can I just say that? I still don't really know how I feel about it. But talking about the cast, we have, of course, Jack Nicholson, who is a very well-known actor. There was a kid in my high school named Jack Nicholson, so I didn't know that Jack Nicholson was like an actor until like later in life, because I was like, oh, Jack Nicholson is like a homecoming king. He was literally whatever, different story. So Jack Nicholson. So, starting out, he's been in numerous amounts of films. To name a few, we have Chinatown, Batman, and As Good as It Gets. Historically, he's played roles of people who are kind of like mentally, like, I don't want to say like crazy, but just like, I don't know, play like a spooky, not spooky, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like some sort of mental instability. He played the Joker in Batman, for example. So obviously that shows a little bit of kookiness. He also he won 3 Academy Awards, which is why I have 3 Academy Awards right there. And he also, like, during his career as an actor, took on directing as well, which is why we have the director chair symbolizing that. He's really like the jack of all trades, I feel like. Also, he is known for working with Danny DeVito. I love Danny DeVito. So next we're going to talk about Danny DeVito. So he played Martini in the film, which is why I have a picture of a martini. I didn't even realize that it was Danny DeVito in the film because he looks so different. And One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was actually one of Danny DeVito's first films that he was in. I think it's like maybe number like 4 or 5 in his like filmography. Like, is that what it's called? I don't know. He's a very well-known actor. He was in Matilda. He was the voice of the Lorax. He was in the One Direction Steal My Girl music video. Danny DeVito is Dorgal. Please tell me you know what that's from. I'm gonna edit it in. Danny DeVito is Dorgal. Also, Danny DeVito stands at about 4 feet 10 inches, which is so amazing. And then I actually compared him to, like, this chart was actually perfect because the tallest person on there was 6'4", which is actually the height of the guy who played Chief, and his name, I know it, is Will Sampson. So that just shows a little bit of comparison there, over a foot difference in height. But anyways, I love Danny DeVito. So, moving on, we're gonna talk about Louise Fletcher. Her character was Nurse Ratched, which is why I have... It's... Okay, so apparently it's spelled Ratched with a D at the end, but it doesn't sound like that when... like, during the film. So I put a ratchet tool with the nurse hat on it. Okay, so I'm an education major, and I had way too much fun making this presentation. I just want to say that, if you can't tell already. Also, I've been in my house for 5 days. So... anyways, Louise Fletcher, she won an Academy Award for this role, actually, which is super great. She was in Star Trek, The Exorcist 2, but I hated her character. I absolutely hated her, which is why I made her the devil. God, like, ugh, she was so awful. Like, I just hated her the entire time. She's evil, she's mean, she, like, has no sympathy towards anybody. And what's interesting is when I was reading about her, she actually was so disturbed by her own performance that she couldn't watch the movie for years, which I was like, haha, that's, like, what you get, but not really. I mean, like, it just shows that she's such a great actress that, like, she, like, herself, like, she couldn't even watch the film, and that I hated her with such a passion enough to make her the devil. Additionally, the role of Nurse Ratched was actually turned down by 4 other women because they thought it was, like, an anti-feminist and misogynistic role, which I think is, it's cool in a way, like women are like, this role sucks, but at the same time, Louise Fletcher was, like, able to, like, overcome this sort of, like, mindset and play this role, and it really showed that she was just a great actress overall, enough so that she won an Oscar, which is excellent. But I hate Nurse Ratched with a passion, so, now we're gonna move on to, Brad Dourif. He played the adorable Billy Babbitt. Really, I have nothing to say here other than I have a huge crush on him, and that's it. Alright, so now we're gonna move on to studio and producer. So the studio that it was made by, it was produced by Fantasy Films. I have an 8 there because they only made 8 films total, but one of them was Lord of the Rings. So that's kind of cool. It showed that they did something. And then the producer of the film is Michael Douglas. He's very experienced. He's known for taking on projects that kind of, like, reflect things that are going on in society. So, we talked about in virtual class how, like, during this time it was kind of when mental hospitals and mental conditions were being taken more seriously. So, he took on this because it was relevant to time, which is great. I gave him little, like, badges on his outfit, because he's so experienced, just to, like, represent his experience and, all that he's done. So next, production of the film. It was only given a $3 million budget. I made you into a $3 million bill. I have way too much time on my hands. Okay, so it was $3 million budget. They took the book and they adapted it into a theatrical rendition and made it a movie. And it ended up making $108 million in the end, which is really great. One thing that I wanted to talk about with production that I noticed of the film was its lack of music. Jack Nicholson's character, McMurphy, kind of brings attention to it when there's, like, the record that the woman is playing, like, one of the nurses. And he's like, it's too freaking loud in here, turn the music off. But the film overall doesn't have a lot of music unless it's, like, during an action scene. And you talked about in class once how, you, I think, personally prefer when music is, like, incorporated into the film, meaning that, like, the music that they are listening to is the same music that the audience is listening to. And I think that this film did a good job doing this. How it played, like, I think, like, Christmas music that they were singing along to during, like, the big drunk scene, and, like, then the music from the record player during, like, the scene when they were all getting their medications or something like that. I just thought that was an interesting thing about production of the film. The legacy of the film. So, I kind of talked about how it changed the way that people saw, like, psychiatry, how it kind of changed the way people saw, like, mental health, and, like, kind of shed light on how people were treated in these institutes, because it wasn't really fair. And I thought that a really interesting part of the film was when everyone was like, we could literally leave, except for, like, a few people. Like, they don't have to be there, but they still were, even though they were treated so poorly. I don't really know what I'm trying to say, but I guess that, it was just interesting, I don't know, to see what might have been of, like, a mental institute then and how it may differ now. I don't know what it looks like at a mental institute nowadays, but, this was a while ago. I think, like, close to 50 years. I had the year written down that this was made. You know, I'm just not sure. But it's changed a lot, I hope. Anyways, I hope it's nothing like it's shown in this film. And then, of course, one of the very important legacies that this film has had is, of course, Joel's hat. He wears the hat because McMurphy wears it. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. So, anyways, that's my presentation on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I hope that you have learned a little bit more, and I hope that this was one of the higher energy presentations. I bet you're dying having to watch all of these. Anyways, have a good quarantine, stay safe, and I guess this is goodbye. I don't know what to say. Alright, thank you. Please give me an A, and goodbye.